Thank you everyone for joining us today on In the Flow. My name is Jessica Kay, and we're here with Robin Wilt, your spiritual CFO. So we have been talking a little bit about how we are feeling in the midst of all of these astrological events that have been happening this month and this really powerful moon. And I can say for myself that it has been intense, like intense with a lot going on, maybe not sleeping as well as I normally do. And then also, a lot of people are having a lot of feelings and overwhelm. So I feel like there's a lot going on in the collective. And we're also feeling that really amplified in ourselves. So we figured we'd chat a little bit about that today. So, Robin, how about you? How are things going?
Um, I'm good. It's funny because usually with full moons, I get like super emotional. I'm all up in my feelings. I feel pretty good actually today. I feel like areas that have been kind of stagnant are starting to move, which is indicative of where we are right now, right? We're kind of in the middle of February, which we're getting closer to spring, kind of wrapping up that wintertime energy. So I think we're all starting to kind of feel that internal shift. And then Uranus, which has been retrograde since August, um, is
Hmm.
moving direct again. It just started this week in Taurus. And then Mars, which has been retrograde since December, is going to start moving direct on February 24th. So I am certainly feeling it. But it's almost like this, especially with Uranus in the mix and the full moon, right? Like I feel like it is kind of this electrifying energy, which can create, it can create like anxiety or that kind of that unsettledness in our body. And it's interesting to see how this affects all of us because, right, we all know that when you look at your chart, like it's going to affect your natal chart differently depending on where these planets are hitting you. So always, if you are, kind of realizing that this is a big phase for you, or you're just feeling like there's a big shift, always go with your intuition, get a reading. It's going to be so much more in depth than just the kind of overall energy that we're talking about. Um, so yeah, I actually feel hopeful. I still have my emotions, right? I'm a Cancer moon, so I'm like, I still have my emotions, but I feel hopeful. I feel like things are kind of shifting. And it's funny, just kind of was saying, that if it seems like a lot of us are moving through a lot of like really deep ancestral things. Um, right. It's that energy of wintertime of shedding. And then also we're in that 9 year, we're in the year of the snake and Chinese astrology. So just a lot of shedding is kind of happening. Um, I certainly had that come up in my own personal life where last Friday I did a energy session with a mentor of mine and it it surprised me at how deep it went. I was very thankful, but sometimes you're not expecting it when you have like these really big releases, especially when it is around ancestral things. So um, check with me tomorrow. Today I feel good. I'm a little tired because the moon woke me up at 3:30, but um, I think I love what you said earlier, Jessica. It's like I think astrology just helps us to understand that we haven't lost our shit, that there's something out there that's happening. We feel it internally, right? That's astrology is like as above, so below. So you're going to feel these things in your body. You're going to feel them energetically, emotionally, and just how can we navigate that and use the energy to our benefit? I'm always a big proponent of that. Like if you know what the energy is, you can use it to your benefit instead of like feeling like you're being flailed around by life. How about you? How are you feeling?
Yeah, well, it's interesting you mention that because that's kind of, what we decided to talk about today. I've had a lot of clients reaching out to me and just people in general, like either saying, "What is going on?" or "I don't know what's going on," or "I think I'm going crazy." And that's where I was like, let's just talk about what's going on because, we're in this process, we're in this 9 year, this completion, we're shedding. And for me, ancestral stuff and also my own kind of I've been spending a lot of time in my heart, really working on my heart coherence. And I forget who I was listening to. They said that, oh, I was listening to Wendy Kennedy. She's somebody I've started listening to recently, and the Peas. And what they were saying was that the heart is the most important organ of our entire being. And that if we can spend more time in it, which we all know, but if we can really put our awareness in there, like it's actually more important than the brain slash mind. Like being in that heart space is so important, even physiologically. Like people that are more heart centered and heart coherent, they may, not always eat the greatest, but their body processes it. So I was like, oh my God, that's so amazing to think about. Like, yes, we know that being heart centered helps us in our interactions and helps us throughout the day to day. But, I'm somebody, I've got Chiron in my sixth house. Like, I'm always
Mm.
working on this, wanting my body and my daily routine to really be healthy and be supportive. And I've had a variety of challenges. So when I thought like, okay, if I spend more time in my heart, it's not just going to help me mentally, emotionally, but it's actually going to help me physically. Like, let me do that. And in the process of doing that, not only have I been processing a lot of ancestral stuff where it's just zooming so past, I can't even stop to see the movie, but also a lot of little places where I've been kind of kinked up. And something else that the piece said with Wendy Kennedy was, that when we feel an uncomfortable emotion, if we actually sit with it, it'll move through our system. So it's like it's coming through so that it can finish the journey through us. And if we sit for 45 seconds, it's gone. So if you're stuck with an emotion for longer than that, then what's really happening is you're in the story. So it's not like you're not watching the play anymore. You decided to jump on stage and get in the mix of things. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is so cool." And I can be a very like visual person with visions coming through, and I love like traveling through that. But with stuff moving so quickly, I've just stepped back and said, allow it to move through me. I don't need to see the visual picture. I don't need to, I'll feel it, and I'm gonna let it move through my body. And that's almost accelerated stuff, but I'm also like, I feel like, oh, like I'm feeling openings and I'm feeling less constriction. And like you said, like I'm feeling more joyful and happy throughout my day. And it's easier to manifest my intention. So I really got a lot out of the interview that she gave. And the other, I'll say one more thing because I just watched it the other day. They said, in the beginning, before you allow your feet to hit the ground, set your intention for the day. And with the
Mm.
energies that are happening right now, they're so supportive of allowing us to move through that. So I can say, have I done it in the past? Yes. And I've had mixed results, but I did it today and it was like, oh my gosh. Like I was just like, you know what? I want peace. And I just moved through my day. I did so many things and they happened so quickly. I didn't even have to think about it. I was just like moving about and I got all this self-care stuff. Like I went and got my hair cut and I went and got my eyebrows waxed. I haven't had any of that done in like over a year. So it's just like I moved seamlessly through some of these self-care things that I just haven't been addressing. And it wasn't effortful. It was really kind of joyful. And here I am talking about it. It's just like, wow, I had a very busy day. And I also was able to have a really joyful day and shift, just by saying, I want to have peace today and I want to have ease. And the day followed me. So it's interesting. Not everything is good and easy, but today was. And so it's like I'm grateful for that. Like I'm highlighting what went well. Because I think every
Mm.
day something goes well and we just don't think about that. So that's where I'm like trying to look at what's going well every day, and shift my focus in that way.
No, I love that. It's funny because it's the second time I've heard that now in maybe a few weeks about setting your intention for the day. And I've been trying to get back to my meditating in the morning. So yeah, I need to remember to set that intention for the day. Um, and I love that, right? Like if you're calling in that peace, if you're calling in and that's where your focus is and your heart is, you're focusing on your heart, like, you know, like continuing to just focus on the things that you desire in that gratitude. So it's interesting that you say, like, of course, right? I want to be heart centered and I want to focus on my heart. But for me, like I've been doing a lot of Byron Katie the work.
Ooh.
So kind of questioning my thoughts and like that has been a big theme for me with some of the energy that I have going on in my chart, like just looking at my thought processes and looking at what I believe and the things that I tell myself. So doing a lot of that inquiry or like just listening to it while I'm working if I can. Or when I'm in the car, like just listening to her like talk people through it because like if you're a person who identifies with their thoughts or if you're like constantly up in your head, that can also create that emotional that can cause like the emotions that aren't quickly moving through you and the things that you're getting attached to because you're attached to like what your thinking is or like what your thought process is. So um the other thing that popped up while you were sharing is like somebody shared with me recently like to just remind yourself like I am transforming when you have those moments of like things coming up or um you're having a challenging day or you're just up in your feelings or whatever it is like just reminding yourself like just closing your eyes taking a deep breath like I am transforming I am transforming because that's how things leave our field. Like that's how we grow. That's how we expand is like those lower energies have to come off of our field somehow. So um it's like, are you going to grab onto them? Or are you just going to allow for them to leave and just allow, what are you focusing on after that? What are you filling up your space with after you've allowed those energies or those thoughts or beliefs to kind of leave your space? Um, yeah, because I think we've all, I think a lot of us have been doing this healing thing for a while. We're not new to this. um, so it's like kind of refining the things that we already know and finding those tweaks and like finding the ways of continuing to make it more easeful because it is challenging sometimes. Especially when you have those big realizations that come through or those big shifts that come through, it can be really, I still have those moments where I'm like, holy crap, like that's where I was coming from in that space. You don't see your stuff until it's like right in front of you. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's interesting that's how I was perceiving that or that's where I was acting from. So just, continue to be gentle with yourself. Even though you've done a lot of work, it's still like they call it a shadow for a reason. Like we don't see our stuff until it's ready to come up, until it's ready to shift. So bringing that compassion, I think, is also right. Like being in your heart space and having that compassion. Have you found like that healing for you has kind of shifted over the last year or so, and like how that shows up?
Interestingly enough, for me, I do a lot of body work and acupuncture and those kind of things. But for me, it shifted in a big way recently. I would say over the last maybe 3 months. And I think I've mentioned this before using I have it right here, the 1000beliefs.com. So it kind of goes back to what you were saying about thoughts. And I look at my life and what I have, and I look at those areas where I'm still struggling. Like there's some spiritual things that I still really am seeking after. And then even some like, relational things, like in my interactions with people, being more understood and really working better in teams. So it's like, and that's where what I can say is that recently I felt really connected to my own inner voice and my own inner guidance, even to the point where I'll like write a prompt and then I'll just write after it, or I've even like kind of taken it to the next level of, um, talking. Like my phone has a recorder, so I'll just ask a question and see what comes through. And I've been getting some really amazing insights that I find very helpful. All of that to say, like, what I've been hearing from a lot of people is that they're being pushed to follow their inner guidance and to really stop seeking outside of them and look inside of them. And
Mhm.
so when I've done that, what's the couple things that have come up for me is looking at my limiting beliefs. So not just like my thoughts, because I think I've done pretty good with kind of addressing repetitive thoughts and cleaning up some of the negative self-talk. But there are some amazing beliefs that I didn't even realize were embedded in there. And, I'll read them. I'm like, okay, that resonates, but I don't see how, like, I'll say, I really want to, have more ease in my relationships and my relating, and that's my intention. So let me, energy test for some thoughts that are not helpful. So I'll go through that booklet and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I don't see how they're connected, but it's interesting. And then the next day I'll be going about my business and things will be smoother. And it's like, so it doesn't make sense. Like in my mind, it's like I wouldn't connect A and B, but it actually A is equaling B. And it's like, oh my goodness. And I do emotion code and body code. I'm certified in both of those modalities. And I was really excited about it years ago when I got into it. And I would do it with clients here and there. And I have a friend who I trade with, and she was like, can you do some of that again? So I was like, okay, I can. And I've actually been finding that like, I've went through and removed all this stuff, but it's like I feel like we're all being asked to work on really subtle things that are in our way, but they're like, even though it's like, it's like that oyster, or that not the oyster, but yeah, the oyster that has the pearl. Like it's just a little grain of sand, but they're making this beautiful pearl out of it. So even though it's something small and very subtle, shifting it is causing huge reality shifts. So that's the other piece. Like when people are like, I want to shift, I want to do this, I want to do that. I feel like right now we're kind of dealing with the dregs that are left behind that we're having to clean up, and things are so subtle. So it's only taking like one step. Like we only have to do like a little bit of work, and we're getting these huge rewards. And it's not like we're sitting here in an epiphany for 3 days, but we can see, I mean, for me, I'm seeing my life shift in huge ways from one little thing and patterns that have been bothering me and different things that I've been wanting. And all I have to even do is think like, how do I solve this problem? And the next thing you know, the answer is right there. So it's a really powerful time right now. You mentioned Uranus going direct, and I'm like, that totally makes sense. Like we're getting this burst towards our own liberation, our own awareness. It just feels very powerful. And it is like when we look at everything, it is a very powerful time um, on earth. And we're all here. So, like you said, being kind and gentle, like I am doing less in my life. I recently had a tooth extracted. So it's like I'm not supposed to be doing any physical activity really. So I've been doing a lot less, a lot less, a lot less. And I probably would not have been doing as little if I didn't have this. But it's been a great opportunity because I feel like I'm able to really hear, listen more and do more of those small subtle things. Whereas if I was up able to be super active, I would be doing something completely different and completely miss the mark. So it's interesting how we are put in situations to bring us exactly where we need to be, and that kindness and gentleness for ourselves and for others. Like I've noticed even in my work groups, like I'm taking 5 steps back, being much more compassionate, creating space for people to be heard because it's hard and there's a lot of uncertainty. And I've heard for years people say, we are going to be the ones that are going to help people make it through these difficult times. And I'm like, yeah, but what does that look like? And now it's like, I know exactly what it looks like. Like, yes, I have these practices, I'm making shifts, I'm doing well. And that allows me to deal with people that are having like daily meltdowns. And I'm not moved by it. So it's like, okay, everybody's having a hard time. I can be here to hold this space. And when somebody is truly heard and seen, they can move through that emotional wave much quicker than if I were trying to ignore it or push it away. So it's like, what is my service to humanity right now? Just showing up for people that are having a hard time. And I feel it. I feel good about it. I feel on purpose. I don't feel like I need to make some grand gesture to say that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been feeling that a lot lately too. Like even just I've been posting more on social media and like doing gratitude. And I wasn't planning on it being like the things that I've been grateful for actually started out as things I was struggling with, or so it's interesting to see like how, because I just kind of allow things to flow through me as I'm writing. But I've heard like really good feedback, from people. And I think it is like it's when there's so much crap out there that we're kind of masking what we're going through. I think anytime we can show up and share like the struggles that we've been through, or the things that have helped us, obviously it's going to help other people. The other thing that I forgot astrologically that's happening right now, that it definitely feels like that energy signature to me, like as you were sharing. And I don't know the timeline of this. I would assume it's going to be for a little bit because Neptune is a slower moving planet. So Neptune and the North Node are conjunct right now. So in Pisces, which to me is that compassion, is having those intuitive insights, but it requires us to be still and it requires us to be a little more subtle. Um, And I same thing for me. Like I found myself like not wanting the TV on or not wanting music on even. I just want it to be silent, or I want to just sit, and just have quiet time, or like get out into the woods, which, I do anyway, but I've definitely have noticed a shift lately. It's like I want to tune in and like hear my own energy and like my own insights rather than trying to like absorb a bunch of information from outside of myself. Which everything in moderation, right? And I feel like there are times and places where, sometimes we want that information. Like I shared, I've been listening to the Byron Katie stuff, but then also like, when I don't want anything on, it's like I just want silence right now, and I just want to hear the birds outside, or I want to hear the dog licking herself because that's what she's doing right now. uh, yeah,
Yeah. Well, and what a perfect, Neptune is at home in Pisces and the North Node, it's just like pushing us to be contemplative and to really pay attention to our dreams. Like anytime I hear Neptune, I'm like, oh, dreams. And, Pisces is that collective unconscious. So what a better time, what a great time to tap into that ancestral stuff and process this stuff. And I've been having wild dreams that have nothing to do with me. And now I'm like, there's the connection,
yeah,
this is what the collective is moving through. So it's really, yeah, it's fun. Like it's a lot of fun to have all of this space to explore in.
yeah. All right, let's see. And it's funny because when we were chatting, we were going to keep it short today, and I'm like, do I even feel? Is there anything else that's coming through? Anything else you want to share or chat about?
Oh, I will say, interestingly enough, mentioning about the natal astrology compared to transits, so
Mm.
we have an eclipse coming up on March 29th, which is my birthday. And so I pulled my solar return chart and it's just like, it's wild. It's completely wild for the next year. Um, so all of that to say, definitely, check out your chart, check out your solar return for this year, because it's a wild year. Like I was listening to Pam Gregory and she's talking about like there are all of these transits that have never ever happened before and they're happening now. So yes, my year is going to be especially exciting because my birthday has an eclipse on it. So wow, and I was born on a full moon, so there's already a lot of wow there. And there was, just tons of stuff in my chart. And it's all like centering around a lot of change in my personal life and my relationships and my job and just a lot of shifting and growth and all of that. But I would say check out your solar return for this year and see what's in there. There's AstroSeek, there's time passages, you can even, if you're into the AI, you can even talk to Chat GPT. Like there's enough stuff out there to get your feet wet. I'm one of those type of people, I love getting readings from others, but I also want to have just a little bit of information so that I can be an active participant in that. It's not like I'm just receiving a bunch of information, but I'm co-creating that with them, which if you're somebody who just wants to show up and receive, there's no judgment around that either. But my
Yeah.
process is like, I want to get some information and I want to mull it over and talk to people about it and then get a reading. And so it's been really fascinating for me to kind of digest this bit by bit and see how this is playing out in my year. Also, see how it's really feeding into my own aspirations, because every year I kind of look at what I want to do. It doesn't have to be like a super in-depth thing, but I'm like, it'd be nice if this, and this, a couple of things. And it really is like, I would say it's not just me. A lot of people, we already have an idea of the energies coming through. So we're already kind of lining up with those energies. And then to get that confirmation, like, yes, your desires and what's going on astrologically is lining up perfectly. So it's like the divine is meeting you on this dance and we get to see what happens through it all. And it's exciting. It's like, wow, like I love being on point and I love being in the flow and I love having that connection. It's just like, oh, that synchronicity makes me feel like I'm not just like a little ant in an anthill. Like I'm actually a part of something larger and greater. And it feels really good for me. So a little personal kind of aha that I've had recently that really helps connect me in a lot of ways. And I think it is a good idea to check out, those natal charts and where do the eclipses fall in your chart? Where do some of these, the nodes changing, where does that fall in your chart? Like how does all this stuff affect you? And looking into it. And if you're like, I don't know enough to even know where to start, I mean, we both give readings. There's plenty of people that do give readings. So get a reading and find out what's pertinent for you. Because there's a lot, like you can go on AstroSeek and get pages and pages, but what's really gonna stick with what you're doing this year? And that's where I say for me, readings really tap into like where am I at right now and what's important. Like cut out all the noise and let's get real focused on, what's going on for me.
Yeah, I love that. It's so interesting because it's like the cycles that you see with clients. I love doing solar returns because it does like it just gives you that kind of framework for the year ahead and like all those big energies. But what I've really started to do with clients that I love is to like look at the next 3 months because it's so much information, right? Like, and the energy is always changing too. So it's like, yes, have that snapshot of like, here's the solar return for the year. But then it has been really effective for a lot of my clients that I have that actually like want to do the spiritual work that goes along with it because right you're taking all this information that you're getting from your chart and then you're utilizing it like oh okay these are the themes that are coming up for me right now. So that has also been really cool that has just been a natural progression because I feel like if we get like too much in the big picture then we kind of miss the weeds and like what's actually showing up for us. But yeah, I love that what you were saying about like doing your own research. It's also interesting that for a while I had people that were only like they really wanted to know about their chart, which sit there and explain the planets and all the things. And lately I've gotten a lot of clients that just want to like just tell me in English. Like I don't want to know about what all this stuff means. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's it's cool. Like I can do either, but it's interesting to kind of see how people are um kind of changing and growing and shifting and what people are wanting more of, because I think, if you kind of are tuning into your own internal knowing, like having somebody just read the chart and then you being able to kind of modify that or align that with what you're already feeling, I think could be really helpful instead of feeling like you need to know all the astrology stuff, right? Because unless you're giving people readings, like, do you really need to know all the planets and all the things? Like probably not, it's probably just a bunch of extra stuff that you don't necessarily need to know. So let Jessica and I or whoever else know it for you.
Well,
Let
and
us
I
geek
found
out.
that too. I found that too, where people are like, I can feel truth. So, talk to me about what's going on, and they either resonate or they don't. And that's where I'll just kind of give it to them plain English. And they're like, I really resonated with this thing you said, and I really resonated with. So when you kind of move from all that heady, like planet, this, that, and the other, and you can really drop into your heart, stuff is really going to resonate as that's like, this is the ambrosia. This is the bite that I need to take out of this buffet. And I've even had people, because I always record my readings, they'll come back and listen to it later and be like, I picked out this bit and that bit. And so it's just like it keeps feeding you with what's pertinent right now. And if we do nothing other than just grab what's pertinent right now, then we don't have that overwhelm. We don't have this problem with digesting our experience or digesting that wisdom. It's just right there. It's perfect. It's on the palate and it nourishes us.
Hmm. Yeah, I have quite a few readings that I've gone back to like over the years, and I'm like, oh, I need to go listen to that reading I had with so and so. So it's interesting to see just the different insights that like hit you at different points on your journey and your experience. So yeah, I certainly hope that the next few weeks are going to be lightening up for everyone. I feel like they are, so I'm going to continue to put my hope and my my faith on that. Anything else you want to share, Jessica? Or-
Yeah, I want to say that, like, even though I know for me, it is, there's chaos, there's overwhelm, there's all kinds of stuff happening. But when I drop into my heart and I just take a snapshot in that moment, I feel exactly what you're talking about, that lightness and that flow. So it's like that, this internal to external. Like when I really tap into like spirit, it just feels like so many things are opening up and humanity is really moving into a beautiful way. So it's almost like don't allow the chaos of what's going on around you to make you believe that things are becoming worse. Like the energy is really moving into this really high frequency. So that's where I always like, I may be in all these, but I always kind of bring myself back to like the underlying hum of the universe is becoming so beautiful and light and delightful. And I may not always be in that frequency, but when I'm like checking into it and it's like that, I'm just like, oh, okay. Like
Mhm.
we're moving through this chaos and everything is okay.
But that's right. Like, isn't that kind of spiritual mastery where it's like, there's life and energy that's happening around you, but like continuing to find that peace and that sovereignty within ourselves is, I think it's something that we all continue to fine tune. And right, we have our ups and downs, and some energies are going to hit us harder than others. But I feel like we're kind of almost reaching like things are more of an even balance for a lot of us. Whereas before, like we would get knocked off and it would take us a while to kind of get back on, where now it's like, okay, we got knocked off, we have our moment, and then we come back a lot quicker to that centeredness and that peace. At least that's what I've seen for myself, like over the last year, so, or however long, who knows. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jessica. It was a pleasure chatting as usual. I
Yes.
love our yeah, I just love these conversations. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining us. Um, Stay grounded, stay compassionate with yourself. Um, I think you also, do you want to say anything about the moon on the way out? I know you said the moon is kind of
Yeah.
making a lot of effects.
The moon has been meeting up with a lot of, I mean, the moon is moving past, it's going conjunct with all these different planets, like it's meeting up in their signs. So the moon is moving through a lot. We've got this full moon coming up right now. And it's also like conjuncting with some fixed stars like Regulus, which is really like this powerful kind of royal warrior. Like it's just this very strong, not like warrior like Mars energy, but just this very strong, powerful, and like when I think about it, it's like this internal knowing, like very
Mhm.
centered energy. So all of this to say, like the moon is going anywhere and everywhere. It's hitting some powerful conjunctions, and that's energy, that's emotion. So if you're feeling up and down and all around emotionally, that's, you're riding that emotional wave with the moon. So you're not losing your mind. There's nothing wrong with you. The moon is, moving us through all these places. And what better way to move through some of that baggage that we may still be carrying than to be brought through all of these bands of emotion. And so that's
Mhm.
where I'm like, what is the point of this? Well, great. Like the moon is putting us in emotional boot camp and helping us, when those emotions overcome us, can we open our heart? Can we stay centered in the heart and allow it to move through us? And if we can, then we're going to be moving through that. And if we can't, that's okay too. Like, even if you're only able to be there for a second, or even if you're aware, like, wow, I'm not in my heart, like the moon is helping us understand where we're at and those levels of awareness. And it's going to be moving it through. So it may be easier to move through that place when you're sad, but maybe not when you're angry. And so we're just gaining so much awareness from the moon as it's making all these moves. So do what you can to observe it. Try not to judge yourself. And, we are in this shedding. So whether, we're shedding at the level that we want to shed, we are shedding. So just acknowledge like you are shedding things and you may not even be aware of it. Being alive right now, you're doing the work. So be gentle with yourself and don't feel like you should be doing it better or bigger. Like, we're in Earth school. We have lessons. When we learn all the lessons, we get to graduate out of this body. But this is an exciting time to be alive. So yes, like I think about it, I'm like, let me keep learning those lessons. Let my soul learn as much as it can because this is such an amazing time to be alive, to be here, to be with all of these peoples and all of these beings from all over. Like 8 billion people, right? We have so many people on this, or is it more than that? We've got a lot of people.
Yeah, I would say 8 billion. Yeah, it's probably
A
more now.
lot of people on this earth, more so than there's been maybe ever, maybe in a long time. And that's because we all want to be here at this time of change. So we are just starting, we've been working on this for a while, but we're seeing it now. It's happening quickly. And that's the other thing. If you're like, where's it all? It is happening open your eyes every morning, you will see the chaos is a sign. Things have to be destroyed before they can be recreated. And it's interesting. I was going to mention that earlier. We are in that year 9, which is kind of like completion. But I also feel in many ways we're in this kind of tower moment. Like there is massive destruction happening in so many ways. And that's going to be what needs to happen. It's almost like that 9, we need to have that destruction so that we can start building anew. And I do see that over the next couple of years, like this is probably going to be a chaotic year. And come 2027, we're going to have a lot of, building and a lot of moving through those different energies. So I feel really good about things. I think everybody should also feel really good. If you don't, that's okay. Be like, Jessica, I feel what I want. Cool.
Yeah.
And there's so many opportunities to feel good about being here now. And even looking for that. Like sometimes when I don't think I can find that higher frequency, I go looking for it. Like, please help me connect to that higher frequency, even just for a second, to help me feel able to move through some of these more dense energies.
Yeah. All right. Well said. Thank you guys. Let us know how you're feeling. Let us know how things are shifting for you over the next couple of weeks as we continue to move. And just, to reach out and say hi. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Bye.
I can see the stars align, dance around the moon every night. And now my eyes are open wide, and the sky has never looked so bright. Now I don't need to see the road to believe, to believe.